G'day everyone, and welcome back to Powersthetics Fitness, helping you to build your body to both look and perform at its best. In today's video, we'll be looking over all the major leg exercises, determining which ones are good, which ones may not be worth your time, and which ones you'll get the most out of. So let's jump into it. So the way this is going to work is that we're going to be going through these exercises at the bottom, putting them between A and D tier, depending on how effective I think they are towards training. Then once we've ranked all of those, we'll be determining which three I think are the best. If you can only do 3 exercises in a limited time, what I would definitely recommend. I'll also be crowning an underrated exercise, which definitely I think deserves more appreciation, as well as like a bit of an overrated one that I think the community often will say is very good, and I think it's still good, but I think it's maybe a little bit overrated. Obviously, all these exercises are good, hence why it's only A through D tier, no F tier. They're good, but I just want to compare and contrast and see which one is the best so you guys can get the most efficient information. So let's jump into it with the back squat. Hands down, one of the best exercises that you can do. Very good for building up the quads, the hamstrings, the glutes, all over. Great for leg strength, great for hypertrophy, great for endurance, very athletic movement. If I haven't hyped it up enough, it's pretty obvious I'm going to be putting it in the A tier. I just think when it comes to legs, I think it's absolutely the king of the lower body. I think that just like back squat, obviously a lot of other squat variations, all very good. And I think that if you're not doing like squats for legs, I think there's definitely gains to be left on the table. Unless you have a pre-existing like knee injury, I think that squats should definitely be something you should be focusing on, making sure you're getting good range of motion. And yeah, we're going to move on to the front squat, which I think is absolutely a great exercise as well. Like what I said about the back squat, but pretty much the same. I think that the only not necessarily negative is that you won't be able to lift as much weight with it and therefore not as heavy a load, but I still think it's so good because it will place a greater emphasis on your core, your upper back for stabilizing the bar, and I think in general just a very good exercise for building athleticism. You'll see a lot of like Olympic weightlifters working on these. A lot of people who like football or rugby players are often very important because they need to be charging head on and like pressure coming forward. I think it's just an overall great exercise. So that will also be going along with the back squat. I think the back squat's slightly better because I think it's got you'll be able to load it more and therefore build build more strength in that. But overall, still great exercise. Moving on to the overhead squat. It's definitely a good exercise. Definitely good for working on your balance, for your overhead mobility, and as well for just a bit of like coordination. But in general, I don't think it's amazing for building up strength, building up hypertrophy, because you'll be limited by, especially for the legs, because you'll be limited by how much weight you can hold overhead. It can also be a bit of a dangerous exercise if you're not doing you're making sure that you're keeping the bar up. It could be a bit not great if you don't have good balance, and so it'll definitely go lower. It's either going to go bottom of C or top of D. I think I'm going to put it in bottom of C for now and see how things go later. Next up is the goblet squat. This is definitely a good way to build up to the back squat if you're still new and may struggle with just the bar, because it's important to make sure you're perfecting form, making sure that you're getting a good range of motion. And if you can't do that with just the bar when starting off, or even down the track as well, I think it's good to use a goblet squat because you can, of course, limit the weight a lot more and build up to the front load. And yeah, I think it's definitely a great exercise. I think that once you are able to do a back or a front squat, there's not much use for it. I don't think there's much point coming back to it. But for the fact that it's going to be very useful for building up to that, I will definitely be putting it in the B tier for that. Moving on to the leg press, very popular machine, very fun to load up the sled and see how much weight you can push. In general, though, I don't think it's as good. I think you'll probably find as you check out the channel as well as other tier lists, I'm not huge on the machines where you have a locked range of motions. I think that it definitely limits your strength gains, as well as the fact that you're not going to be working on your stabilization muscles. There's not much application to athleticism and strength, and therefore for that it's going to be going in the C tier. Great, if you can't do a squat or you have some injuries, it can definitely be good for working on single leg strength. But in general, I think that unless you have an injury, you'll absolutely be better off doing the squat. So it'll be going in the C tier, top of C tier, above the overhead squat, but still C tier nonetheless. Moving on to the deadlift, absolutely one of the most iconic gym exercises, definitely the one that will be lifting the most amount of weight. And I think that when it comes to legs, I think it's an absolutely amazing exercise. I think that it's obviously like back as well. So I think that sometimes back might be a limiting factor, but in general, I think it's so good for building your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, especially the different variations like the sumo deadlift, as well as the compared to the conventional. They definitely have different pros and cons. In general, I think the deadlift absolutely have to go in the A tier. I think that sometimes, like, if you don't put emphasis on form, it could lead to injury. But it's still an absolutely terrific exercise. Moving on to the Romanian deadlift. This one will be where you usually will start from a rack position. Sorry, not a rack position. Just like a hang position, and you'll slowly go down, keeping your legs as straight as possible, and make sure that you are putting more emphasis on the glutes and the hamstrings rather than the quads. I think it's an absolutely terrific exercise for building up those glutes and hamstrings as well as your lower back. I think it's definitely going to be going in the A tier along with these other ones. Like, these are absolutely some of the kings of the lower body, and I think the Romanian deadlift is a great way to put more emphasis on the legs compared to the conventional deadlift, because the conventional deadlift will definitely be a lot of back, a lot of lower back, as well as like a bit more of a quad dominant, especially since you're doing a lot of squats already. It's something to kind of supplement the hamstrings and the glutes. Alright, moving on to the hip thrust. I am a big fan of the hip thrust. I think it's great for building up good glute strength, because obviously the glutes are the biggest and strongest muscle in the body. So an exercise that really emphasizes that is great for building that up, great for building explosive strength, explosive power. That's going to be going in the top of the A tier. Great exercise, quite underrated in my opinion, and something that I definitely think deserves more love. A lot of the time people will think it looks a bit weird, like especially when you're thrusting the weight up, and may like be something that people will steer clear from, but absolutely just ignore the peer pressure or whatever it may be, or the people thinking that you're staring at, that people are staring at you. Just, it's a great exercise. Ignore it. Just get it done. Moving on to the hyperextension, one which I'd never used that much until recently. A friend recommended it to me, and I thought, okay, this is actually pretty good for building up the glutes and the hams. It's a good way to do a bit more lightweight, get a bit more higher reps in, and just a good alternative, especially if you don't want to get too bulky. I know a lot of people want to have strong legs, but not necessarily big legs because of just aesthetics reasons, which is fair enough. Like, obviously you want to have good strong legs and don't want to have chicken legs, but I completely understand that as well. For that, I'm going to be putting them in the B tier, probably below the hip thrusts. Like, it's obviously a great movement, but I think that when it comes to hinge movements, I think the hip thrust and the deadlift variations are definitely better. Moving on to the lunges. So these are going to be great for building up good unilateral movement and great leg strength. Yeah, there's not much else to see. They're just really good for building up strength. They're good for athleticism. I think there's a slightly better variation, which we'll get to next. So for that, I'm going to be putting them in the B tier. So the next will be the Bulgarian split squat. I absolutely love the Bulgarian split squats. I think that they're way better for building up that sort of individual strength. Like, obviously there's very minimal differences between them and the lunges, but I've just always preferred the Bulgarian split squat. They're love-hate relationship. They can absolutely suck the next day, but you absolutely love them, and it's a great way to load up and, just get a lot of reps in. So for that, I'm going to be putting them in the high B tier, just below the hip thrusts. Okay, moving on to the last two exercises. They're going to be the what's called the leg curl and the leg extension. As I've said before with the machines, I'm not a big fan of machines, and these are even more of a locked range of motion. You're only moving just the singular knee joint for both of these. I just think that they're just not great for athleticism. They can be good for hypertrophy, but again, you don't want to have oversized legs comparatively. So if you, for some reason, do have a lot of a very lagging legs, maybe consider that. But at the same time, I think just squat more, do some more Romanian deadlifts. I think that will just be way better for you, unless the only reason is if you are already really taxed energy wise and just nervously. Maybe give them a try, but in general, I just think that for both leg extensions and leg curls, they're way better options. So that will be those exercises. We'll now determine what I think are the top 3 most underrated and most overrated in this list. So for the top 3, unsurprisingly, I'm going to be putting the back squat in. I think it's absolutely great to have a squat variation, a hinge variation, and then a lunge-based variation. So I think this will definitely be the good one for the squat. Obviously, you can do the front squat as well, but I think the back squat's a little bit better. And as you'll see with the other 2 movements, it'll be good to have a slightly more glute-dominant one because the glutes are very important. For the hinge variation, it'll be either the deadlift or the Romanian deadlift. Both are great, and in general, if you don't have deadlifts in your program, I think that that's like a bit of a detriment, but I'd say for legs, I'm going to put the Romanian deadlift alongside the back squat. If you've seen the back tier list, you'll see that I hold the regular deadlift in high praise for that, so obviously you'll still be doing deadlifts, but then you'll have the Romanian one if you want to emphasize the legs more for leg day. And finally, for the lunge variation, we'll be doing the Bulgarian split squat. I think that's a great way to really emphasize the unilateral strength and just, building up the legs for strength, for hypertrophy, for power, athleticism, whatever it may be. Okay, moving on to the most underrated of the picks. There's a few different options. I could definitely go the front squat because that can sometimes be neglected comparatively, but I'm going to be going with the hip thrust. I think that is often overlooked. I think a lot of people think that it looks weird, but I think that it's just such a great glute hip builder. It's a great way if you have lower back injuries to really work on the hinge-based movement, and overall just great exercise. One thing I forgot to mention though is with the Bulgarian split squat, as I said before, obviously the front squat and the deadlift I think are probably better movements, but at the same time I think that you'll already have those covered in the back squat and Romanian deadlift, so they serve different functions. But moving on to most overrated, it's going to be one of the machines, I'd say. I think it's going to be the leg press, because a lot of people will say, oh yeah, that's like their equivalent of a squat, and they just do like leg press instead of squat. And I think that that's just like, unless you have the injuries, I think that the squat is just so much better. I think that in general, like the legs curl and leg extensions are probably worse, but I don't think they get as much praise as the leg press does. And I think that the squat is just such an amazing exercise that if it gets neglected, I think it's just not great for overall progress. So there we have it. And there we have it. If you found this video helpful, be sure to drop a like. If you have any comments or any disagreements with anything that happened in the list, be sure to let me know down below in the comments. And if you want to see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you want your own tailored program where I break everything down for you, be sure to check it out on the website, link in the description down below.